So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending upon your time zones. This is Anina and Alexander, along with Sia and Jijo, representing Saintgits Group of Institutions. Welcome to Women in Blockchain panel discussion organized by Hyperledger India Chapter and Saintgits Group of Institutions and Technology Management and Innovation. So before starting the session, I would like to thank Julian Gordon, who is a Vice President of Hyperledger Asia Pacific, who's actually behind us with all the support. David Boswell, the Director of Ecosystems with Hyperledger, Hyperledger India Chapter, and Saintgits Group of Institutions for organizing this event. I know that this is a much anticipated event, and a much more about this event. This is actually a kind of discussion where we will be focusing on the role of women in changing landscape of blockchain with a closer look at the impact that female figures are actually making in the industry. So today, I hope we have a right mix of panelists here, and over to Sian Jijo for introducing the women in blockchain. Sian.
Hello everyone. Today I've been given the opportunity to introduce our wonderful panel members. So first, let me introduce Advocate N.S. Napanai. She is an advocate, Supreme Court of India and Bombay High Court with 29 years of experience and a pioneer and specialist in cyber laws and laws pertaining to emerging technologies. A litigator who has handled a large array of cases pertaining to constitutional, criminal, cybercrime, IPR, corporate and commercial laws. She has also undertaken transactions globally. She is the founder of Cyber Sati, an initiative that is focusing on cyber safety primarily for women and children. Apart from these, she is also engaging in a social responsibility in training judges, armed forces, students, and industry. Next, we have Shalini Warrior. She is the Executive Director of Federal Bank, who is in charge of spearheading the digital strategy and enhancing the operational excellence through automation and digitalization to improve client experience. Before joining Federal Bank, she was the CEO and Head of Consumer Banking of SCB, which is Standard Chartered Bank, and she worked for more than 25 years. She is known for orchestrating conventional transformation to make way for digital culture and prepping the bank to make a digital leap. We also have with us Dr. Jane Thomason. She is a co-founder and Chief Inspiration Officer at FinTech. She was recognized in Forbes magazine in 2018 as blockchain's leading social development evangelist, and in the Introducer in 2019 as a blockchain woman leader. She is a thought leader on digital transformation to shift to a human-centered digital economy. She is the lead author of the book Blockchain Technologies for Global Social Change, and she's a frequent speaker and commentator on blockchain and disruptive technology. And she has also shared her valuable suggestions on how blockchain has the potential to solve global problems. She was a board member and team leader for various organizations the past 28 years. And she has also been an executive advisor for World Health Organization's Health Metrics Network. We also have with us Darshita Gillies. She is the founder and CEO of March, which is a leading sustainability-linked, value-driven, technology-enabled impact platform that is accelerating the achievement of United Nations SDGs and building trust and transparency, starting with the multi-billion-dollar philanthropy and impact investing sector. She was one among the 100 most influential in UK-India relations for her exceptional performance. Under her leadership, Manj had also won the Best Startup of the Year award from Infosys Limited. Prior to joining Manj, she was a director for Blue Dot Advisory for 6.5 years. And finally, we have Sosu Alex. She is a blockchain technical architect from Tata Consultancy Services. She is handling various projects in blockchain and a committee member of TCS ION course on blockchain. She is a technical prodigy with vast experience as an IT analyst with domain knowledge in artificial intelligence, .NET development, and blockchain. She is also a CODA certified developer and has a certification in Six Sigma Green Belt. Looking forward to a very inspiring discussion. Welcome all.
Thank you so much, Sian. So first, let me ask my panelists to share the story that led to what they are today, because I know a lot of them who are actually into this space, but doesn't want to be visible. And I think it will be a kind of helping them to find their role models and open up the doors to whatever they want to be. So first, let me move to Shalini Warrior. So Shalini Warrior, what are the tenets that work for you personally?
Thank you, Anina, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whichever part of the world you are in. I'm really happy to see the kind of panelists who have joined together, truly international and global in nature. So, for me, I think, the introduction had spoken about my journey. Just to add a little bit color to that, I qualified as a chartered accountant. And as soon as I qualified, I joined Standard Chartered and worked with Standard Chartered for close to about 25 years across various disciplines and various geographies, till about 4.5 years back, when I decided to kind of stay in banking, but come to Kerala. Kerala has been home, is home. This was a unique opportunity for me to come and do something with the banking industry in India, which was undergoing a lot of change and transformation at that time. So on this panel, I will not claim to be a blockchain expert. I think my fellow panelists are all quite experts. But yes, a large part of my role today in Federal Bank is about leading the digital transformation that we're going through in the bank, and our participation in the blockchain kind of revolution is a part of that digital revolution and that digital journey we're going through, which I'll talk about later. To come to your basic question, Anina, I don't think there is any silver bullet or any one answer that can fit for all women at all times in their lives. So for me, there are kind of, two parts to this whole thing. One is about ourselves, we ourselves as women. This whole issue of diffidence, wanting to kind of take a back seat has been, in my view, been a big issue for a lot of women across the world, and particularly in India. For example, in my experience, I interview a lot of, entry-level students coming into the bank, various mid-level management recruitments, interviews that we do. And in most instances, what I notice is that, technically there is a very high level of soundness in the ladies I interview and the young girls I see, etc. So technically you can, literally put them up against anybody and they would win hands down. Where I think we tend to suffer a lot more is on the whole self-confidence and assurance piece. And to me, that is far more critical than anything else, Yes, technical knowledge, skills, etc., are absolutely imperative. They are necessary, but they're definitely not sufficient to be able to make the kind of progress we need to make. So what has helped me has been that it's been, yes, technically, competent, know the subject, excel in it, do some hard work to make sure, we continue to learn, etc., etc. But the self-confidence and assurance is the single biggest thing that I see we need to develop in ourselves. So having said that, there is a second part to it, which is the support system. It's to be, it's quite natural for women to need a little higher level of support, whether it's family, friends, institutions for that matter, all of it have to provide. In Federal Bank, for example, we do a lot of work on the second part of it, which is on the whole institutional support through, creches, sabbaticals, the kind of breaks we need to keep people in, the support we provide during things like maternity leave, etc. So we do a lot of work. So I think the true secret in my view is when you get that whole combination right, when you have the self-confidence and assurance and the institutional family, friends support that is there, when both of that come together, we definitely see success. And that's what worked for me. Like I said, there is no silver bullet answer to some of these things. You've got to work your way through it. But one of the things I keep emphasizing to people that I meet and talk to, and the young girls that I mentor, etc., is that you've got to develop your own self-confidence. All these phobias are in our own minds. The so-called glass ceiling that we talk about is purely in our mind. We've got to break through that, and it will only come with building more and more self-confidence and assurance.
Amazing, amazing, Shalini Warrior. So coming to Advocate N.S. Napanai, your inspirational story of how you overcame your fear and your journey of what you're today.
I don't know about inspirational or not, but here's my journey, right? So the shorter version of this fairly long journey of nearly 30 years is this. Sometime around 7th grade, I announced that I was going to be a lawyer, and there was no looking back. I knew then, and I stuck with it. I guess one of the good things about our generation is our choices were limited. So that's also the bad thing. But when you have to choose between multiple options, I think having less choice makes it easier in a way. But for me, it was not about, limited choices and therefore law. It was for me unequivocally law, you know. And the other thing, which was again, what made life very easy for me was having a very focused and a definitive idea of what kind of law I wanted to practice also. So I wanted to become a lawyer to practice as a criminal lawyer, that specific, you know. And that seventh grader did not change her mind at all till date. You know, I started interning from, I think, about when I was 19 years or so, and I've been in law for nearly 30, no looking back on that. So if you ask me about, how do you decide? How do you, get this level of focus or something? I don't know if mine was an exceptional case, but I have come across many others who have also told me that they found it quite easy to decide. But I find predominantly the majority seem to feel, and this is not gender specific, it's gender neutral, that a lot of people today particularly are finding it very difficult to identify and stick to one specific area of focus. And I know this may sound as a cliche, but passion helps. When you're passionate about something, very clear about what you want to follow as that passion, you don't think about other things. It's not like, you can put a scale of pros and cons and then decide. That's not passion. You don't decide on the basis of what your scope or opportunity is going to be. That's not passion. You don't decide on how much money you're going to make out of this initiative. That's not passion. Passion is about just knowing what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's okay if you change your mind. It's okay if you digress into a lot of other, what I call as the tributaries in terms of the work you do, etc. But your core area remains the same. The core focus remains the same. And that's defined my journey. So whether it was criminal law or corporate and civil thereafter, which I've done, but primarily intellectual property rights or IPR, which led me to cyber law. And the focus I've shown in cyber laws from 1995, not just now, not from 2000 when India got its codified laws, but way before that. And till date, my involvement in emerging technologies, learning and understanding the underlying technology and not just the law. And again, like Shalini, I don't claim to be an expert in blockchain, but I understand the technology and I understand its interplay with law and the need for it. So that evolution is actually my original passion, which burns bright. And also, that we are always students for life. So we don't ever stop being students. We don't set aside that inquisitiveness, which is what drives us as youngsters. So I always tell people I'm very, very young at heart and in my conduct and in my thinking, because I'm still inquisitive. I'm still very keen to learn. And I love being out there ahead of the field and getting into something that's new. In my time, even intellectual property rights was new. And I was there ahead of the crowd. So I don't do it because I want to be ahead of the crowd. I just like, this idea of learning and being part of this new and evolving field. So that's my journey in brief.
That's an absolute word of motivation, actually. Coming to Dr. Jane Thomason.
Thank you. And look, I really want to resonate with that point about find something you're passionate about and follow that pathway. The second one that I just wanted to also agree to is if you look for the glass ceiling, you're going to find it. If you look for the blue ocean, you probably will find that. So don't look for the challenges, look for the opportunities. But the other one I wanted to share, because I think this is so important, is find your own pathway and don't be constrained by social and institutional barriers. And I want to tell a story, and this is a true story. I'd been overseas for 15 years and I was coming back to Australia. I got a job as Director of Women's Health in the state of Queensland. And I was pregnant with my second child. And I started work about 5 or 6 weeks before she was due to be born. And I got a call from Human Resources and they said, oh, you know, we understand you're going to have a baby. And I said, yes. And you want to come back to work after, 2 weeks? And I said, yes. And you want to breastfeed? And I said, yes. And this rather uncomfortable young fellow said, well, we don't really have facilities for breastfeeding. And I said, well, I've got a breast and I've got a chair, so I think I'll be okay. And this was like a culture of not embracing women and childhood and enabling women to pursue a career, when they had young babies. And that just made me more determined. When I came back, not only did I breastfeed my child in the office with the door shut, I took her to meetings and everywhere I wanted to normalize this, because I think this is one of the barriers. If ever I think there's a challenge that women face, is how to be successful in a career and still be able to continue that important role of motherhood. So for me, it was breaking the barriers that stop women being able to normalize being mothers, being able to normalize looking after their children and still being competent professionals.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I think that's enough of a story for me, but it's have the passion, don't look for obstacles, and then be determined if you think what you're doing is important, and don't let these social barriers get in front of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jane. Coming to Sosu Alex, how you ended up to what you're today?
Hi, Anina. Thank you for the invite to join this panel. And I'm humbled and I'm honored to be a part, with stalwarts who are the others on the panel. So if you want to talk about my journey, it's been pretty smooth sailing, I would say, till now. I've always been interested in computers. So my family was one of the first who had a computer in our locality. So I was introduced to the area of internet and computers pretty early on. For my engineering, I did take electrical and electronics because that was the popular choice at that time, because the IT industry was going through kind of a lull when I joined. But still, all my electives, whenever I had a choice, engineering admission is not always a choice for everyone. So for my electives, I've always taken computer science and or related topics. And so I had that interest going on. Even my professors used to say, you never study anything about your core subject, you're more interested in computer science. So, and I got selected through campus selection into Tata Consultancy Services, the great organization that it is. So much of variety and so many choices to pick from. And I got into the .NET side of things, so Microsoft technologies. And it has been, I was just taking whatever challenges got thrown at me, I just took it without, thinking about whether I'll be able to do it or not. I mean, the attitude was like, we'll cross the bridge when we come to it. And so around 2015, I started learning, reading about this blockchain technology. So that was another thing which I used to do. I used to keep reading all these articles and the write-ups that comes in LinkedIn, Medium, and all these sites. So I started reading about this blockchain technology, and I looked for some courses which could, give a more structured approach to learning it. And it so happens that at that time, there was absolutely no courses available. So for all those who have worked with blockchain or aware about blockchain, it started with Bitcoin, but it's not just Bitcoin. So the only course that was available was about Bitcoin. So so I was like looking at resources, how to develop myself into this. And so it so happened that TCS started a practice to focus on blockchain. So this announcement just came out of the blue, and I just got wind of it. And without a second thought, I just went and contacted the people in charge and said, yeah, I know I am doing in a project now. I am fully owning that project now. I'll not be able to make a change right now. But sooner or later, maybe 3 months down the line, I want to make a change and I want to join blockchain. So uh, they were very, very happy to accept, maybe because the passion or my interest was clear to the person who was leading it. And yeah, they were very happy to have me. And I started out in blockchain as a technical lead, leading a team of developers. And now I am an architect in that space, working on Ethereum. And yeah, so that was my journey. So my takeaway, like what the point that I would want to say is, passion. Yes, I agree. Passion is very much required. You should not be stopped by the challenges. You should always look for the opportunities. But there is also the important element that you have to ask for what you want. You have to really ask. Sometimes the society is very much, biased in the sense that they may think, okay, she's a woman, she may not take up that challenge, she may not be up to it. But you have to go out there, put yourself out there and say, ask for the assignments that you want, ask for that challenges. You don't need to go looking for the tough challenges, but what you want, you have to make it clear that you want it and you want ask for it. So I asked for the blockchain, and they were more than happy to get me on boarded. And the supervisors at that time were also very supportive in wrapping up the current responsibilities. All you have to do is just ask. So that's about my journey, how I ended up in blockchain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sosu Alex. Coming to Darshita, your journey from a humble background in India to the 100 most influential list.
Thank you, and good morning from sunny London, unusually sunny today. You're beautiful. I get to sit out in the garden here and speak with everyone. I would say a couple of things. Firstly, I just want to say it's such an honor to be alongside with such phenomenal women who've done such brilliant work all this throughout their lifetimes. And Shalini, I suddenly, my memory rings back. I started my journey as a chartered accountant in Mumbai, and I joined Standard Chartered as my first career path. And it just brought me memories of one thing that many of us in India face, and I faced it as well, was I came from a very humble family. And when I say humble, it's an understatement. There were days where I would open the kitchen cabinet and there was no food, and we didn't have money to buy food. And we would go around the house and collect paper for raddi or for recycling materials, plastic bottles, glass bottles, and then we would go and buy some food for the family. When I was writing my chartered accountancy exam, we didn't pay electricity bill for 3 months. So they came and cut off on the night of the exam. And I said, this is unfair, that on the night where everyone has access to light at the very least and no stress during such an important exam, I have all these challenges. And I still remember we used to sleep on the same bed, my brother and sister. They were sleeping. I had a candle and I said, tonight I'm not going to cry. Tonight I'm going to study with whatever circumstance I have, and I'm going to pass this exam, because this for me is a gateway to another life, for not just for me, but for my whole family. And for me, it's that determination that we need to hold onto, especially in the face of challenges. I think all of us face challenges. I'm not special just to be facing it for me. I feel it's a very human thing. And I feel many times we turn around. When we see a challenge, we want the easy way. And so my one single most tip to anyone and everyone listening is when you are facing a challenge, you're probably in the right space, and stay there, because there is beauty on the other side when you go through it. And long story swift, Standard Chartered was just a launch pad into me experiencing myself as a woman and feeling empowered because suddenly I could make decisions. Up until all my decisions were made by my family and mainly my dad. And so this is something I think Indian women still share. We always look up to our parents as decision makers, and they hold our best interest at heart. And at the same time, there are times um, where it's like you're brought up in a flower pot and you are now planted in a forest. Um, and but you're still in the flower pot and you have to break free of those constraints, but they are not constraints actually. They are just processes that we have to go through. With my parents, I had similar challenges, and as a family, I always kept saying to them, I love you, you love me, and at the same time, you have to trust you have given me the values to make the right decision in life. And so I moved out of banking and I started to explore coaching, leadership development, and they thought that the best thing to be was to be at a bank and be a well-paid professional and not go out and venture into other things. I think for me, coming back to passion, for me, the passion has always been, how can we create a better world? I could see when I was where I was born and raised, and I had friends who had beautiful cars and who would go on amazing holidays, and we stayed at home. I always thought something is not right. And as I grew older and older, and I got to see more of the world and experience life through various hats, I realized that we have a challenge that is easily solvable, and especially now with technology. And that sort of sparked my curiosity. So how can we use all this amazing technology we have for connectivity, for mobilizing capital, for better health, but why are we not using it to really enable well-being of all people on this planet? And it is with that inspiration I started exploring the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a common framework that we can all use as a metric-driven way to get to somewhere where we all want to be. And I started Munch just 2 years ago with really a sense of three things. We want to mobilize money. We want to mobilize to have an impact. We want to use the power of technology to make this happen fast. And I'll share more about blockchain and all the things we're doing in the following conversations.
Thank you, Darshita. So what I understood is it is not about getting a lot of women into this space, but what we need is we should be aware of the opportunities. We need to get the right skills needed in the space, and that must be the place where the investments must go. So, Dr. Jain, you have been involved a lot in blockchain. You are actually interested in emerging markets, especially the bottom 1 billion. And you're interested in how this is going to change the life of the poor. So you have been involved a lot in evangelizing and trying to get the people know about the impact of this technology. So how you kind of discovered this blockchain and what impact it is going to have in this world?
Well, I tell my story because it's a true story. And in about 2010, when Bitcoin was just launched, my son came and said, "Hey, Mom, they've invented this new digital currency. It's called Bitcoin. You should buy some." And I completely ignored what he told me. And then he came back to me in about 2016 and he said, "Hey, Mom, when I told you to buy Bitcoin, did you buy any?" And I said, "No." By that time, it was worth about $3,000. I think when he first told me it was worth 10 cents. So I completely missed the Bitcoin boat. But he said, "Look, Mum, you ignored me before when I told you about Bitcoin, but now I'm telling you about blockchain. That's what Bitcoin's built on, and you really have to go and learn about it because it's going to change everything." And I thought, oh, okay, I better start learning about this thing called blockchain. And that's really what happened. So I was just reading about it in 2016 and trying to understand. And then I'd been working in international development already for many years in developing countries, and deeply, deeply, deeply understood some of the challenges and the problems that emerging economies face. And for some reason, I was just thinking this one day about the tsunami, the humanitarian disaster in Banda Aceh, Indonesia, on Boxing Day, when 200,000 people got washed away to sea. And we had worked in Indonesia after the tsunami with the reconstruction. And I just suddenly had this moment, which was when this happened, no one knew who was washed to sea, who were the people who survived. The bank accounts had got washed away. The health records had got washed away. The land records had got washed away. And no one knew, no one could connect with the things that, you know, their educational entitlements or their money or anything like that. And then the donors came in with money and all sorts of people, and no one really knew if the people who should have been receiving the funds received the funds. And I just was thinking about blockchain, and I just suddenly thought, you know, if this had all been, if everyone had their identity and it was recorded safely in the cloud, linked to a biometric and a mobile phone, this would have made the reconstruction so much less hard than what it was. It wouldn't have changed the tragedy, but it would have changed the ability to be able to get people back, you know, into their lives. And it was that moment, and I just thought, this could be so transformational in humanitarian disasters, for the unbanked, for people who don't have access to energy, who are not connected to the economy. In so many ways, this is really going to change people's lives, because once we have mobile technology, we have the capacity to connect people to so many things that they haven't been able to be connected to before. So for me, it was just that moment, which was, and we have to tell people about that. We have to make them understand that it's not about digitizing some process that will make their accounting simpler and faster. It's about being able to transform the lives of people who hitherto have been unconnected to the global world. And so for me, that's what it was. That's what moves me. That's what still gives me the passion to be able to share with people. We need to create the vision for how we can change people's lives with this. And so that's what drives me, and that's what, you know, I'm really pursuing. And more than anything, it's envisioning people with what's possible, thinking about a future that's different than the past.
Thank you, Dr. Jean. So I would like to take up your comments, and what I felt is like blockchain enables a sort of global connectedness. Like it enables people to connect across the borders, and we are free to work on the projects that we actually like to work on. And that is what I got to know from you. So let me ask Advocate N.S. Napanai, who is actually involved in law and policy space, like how law can actually be an enabler to blockchain, and what are the key issues that you see coming out? Like when we use blockchain technology, especially if we are using permissionless blockchain technology, we are actually in a borderless environment. Like you know, we are, but we have laws which is territorially bound. So how this law can be a facilitator to blockchain technology? Madam, can you please unmute your microphone? Yeah.
That's a lot of questions in one question there. But let me see if I can capture all of it to crisping. You know, firstly, when we talk about law and being an enabler, most people may think it's an oxymoron, you know, because not just in India, globally, people think law is actually an obstacle because it creates problems, and because the perception of law has always been about adversarial litigation. So people think only when you're in trouble, you need to look up the law. Whereas I have always advocated, and my postulate always is that law is an enabler. So Anina, you may recollect my session at the Kerala Blockchain Academy. I would draw on that to answer the first part of your question, which is that technology as an innovative process always grows better exponentially without, when it is not restrained. But it reaches that tipping point where it needs a leg up. You know, you need something to propel it further. Otherwise, it may just tank and fall. And blockchain is a classic example of that. I call law as the tipping point for any innovation. Why do I say that? Because at that point, when it reaches a critical stage, and a critical stage would be when, you know, investments are what the industry is looking for, every investor will look out for what is the safety net that they have in putting in investments into a technology. And that safety net actually comes from law. Take the example of blockchain. So much potential. So I would want to draw on what Jane said about cryptocurrencies and blockchain, which was just the underlying technology of cryptocurrencies. So a little aside here on how did I get into blockchain and how did I become, recognized as an expert in this. It was actually such a simple reason. One, of course, was I was reading up a lot about it. I think maybe around 2012, 13 or so. I don't recollect the exact year, but I distinctly remember why I started reading up more about it. One is, of course, as and when something new comes, I love to just learn about it. But I was at this session I was giving for judges. You know, it was a judicial training session. And we usually have a technology expert and a law expert in a session. So I was there to give the session on law, and there were people from the technology field also. And naturally, it was early days when there was a lot of fear of cryptocurrency, and you know, it was not like everybody liked to welcome this kind of a disruption. And at that time, when questions about what exactly is this blockchain that you keep talking about came up, and this technologist got into a very passionate description of blockchain, I was looking around and I realized that I was actually looking at blank faces because it was so hyper-technical. So I just jumped in after the technology expert completed. I said, let me try my hand as a layperson, from one layperson to another, if I may be able to explain blockchain. And I explained it to them. And at the end of it, I thought it was very nice of the technologist to tell the audience, she's going to put us out of our jobs, you know, because she explained it better than we could. You know, so that was actually like a nice start to something more in this. And this is where I see law being the enabler. Now, blockchain had so much potential. All of us who have been or understand or involved in some manner in this domain understand that. It also saw a humongous amount of investment into it. And yet, we are still talking about blockchain as if it is some kind of sunrise sector or a new age technology. So many years later, technology actually has a shelf life, and it doesn't and shouldn't take this long for it to be accepted. So what was the reason why blockchain didn't take off to those heights? You know, I'm reminded of Jonathan Livingston Seagull here. So not just fly as any seagull, but to this, you know, the heights of a Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Why was it scuttled? Because of its original connect with cryptocurrency. Because, you know, you asked a very specific question about permissionless environment. And we know that a permissionless environment will still require an incentivized environment. And the minute you talk incentivization, you're then getting into this issue of tokenization. So I know for a fact that the minute we talked about policies and laws for regulating blockchain, which naturally no government was really against, and they understood the benefits of it, but they were very reluctant with respect to cryptocurrencies. The issue became about how do you distinguish and delineate between two end products. And I'm talking about cryptocurrency and tokenization here, in such manner that a token will not be misused. a cryptocurrency will not be launched under the guise of a token. And here is where I feel law can bring in this kind of certainty and enable a technology to really take wings. And it was this uncertainty. It was a lot of actually scams that happened during that phase, which were actually not even a cryptocurrency issue. It was a circular money circulation scheme in the guise of tokenization or cryptocurrency. All of these contributed to, the flight which was just taking off, suddenly having a technological glitch and then tanking. So today, if we really need to launch, two things are happening. One is the kind of support that government entities have extended to blockchain as a technology. In fact, I'm speaking about the use of blockchain for an election process in a few days from now on 10th. So you can see the kind of importance that this technology has now acquired with government and government initiatives. So that has helped a lot for blockchain to now finally lose its veneer of, that fear that goes with it because of its connect with cryptocurrency and have a much wider acceptance. But a lot of the government enterprises or use cases are also going more with a permissioned environment. For it to become more broad-based, for it to really remain true to its original permissionless environment, we need laws now to explain how it can work. A simple thing like an addition of a provision, just to give an example to close out, under the US laws of what is a smart contract, a recognition, a legal recognition of a smart contract helped immensely in the acceptance of blockchain on, a legal parameter. So this is how law can enable. That's as much as I can say in terms of things which I would otherwise cover over a whole session. But all I can tell people out there is, don't look at law as if it is some kind of a stumbling block. It can actually have and does have a lot of positive, impact on emerging technologies, innovation, and most importantly, what every business needs, monetization of that innovation. And two, that law has to come in at the earliest point of time when we reach the tipping point. If we leave it too late, as has happened in India, we're going to miss the bus. There is so much that has happened in terms of investments into this innovation, but it's not too late. The time for blockchain has come. So let's also have laws or regulations which will help blockchain gain wings and India also get its potential, the best out of its potential.
So law is actually giving a lot of protection against bad actors who are taking advantage of this good technology, right?
I wouldn't say law is helping them. In fact, that's the reason why you need law as an enabler too. Because when you have regulations, it doesn't just help the innovator. It also helps reining in the bad actors. It will also help in taking action against the bad actors. Today, what is happening is because of this fear factor, anybody and everybody who wants to take recourse, because there is something called as purposive interpretation. So existing laws can be applied for emerging technologies also. So you don't really need a new law for blockchain, for instance. You did not need a new law, even for cryptocurrency, you could have applied existing laws. But in doing that, because of the fear in the minds of the user on whether, there is this gray area. Am I committing some wrong? Am I in the wrong? If I, for instance, go and give a complaint about a scam pertaining to cryptocurrencies, will the police say, why did you buy cryptocurrency? So the number of bad actors who have gotten away with it because of absence of clarity in law is not funny. So actually, I would say, when I say law as an enabler, it not only enables businesses, it also enables in rooting out bad actors.
Thank you. Thank you so much, madam. So coming to Darshita, March has been awarded Startup of the Year award, and how you actually put together such complex projects in March, and what are the steps that you follow to do it?
Thank you. I think, and I'm also seeing there's a lovely list of questions that are coming on. So I'm going to use the story of Munch to answer some of the questions that are here, also from a blockchain and technology perspective. So firstly, I started my study in blockchain when Oxford announced its first program on blockchain. And this was for me a fantastic opening into seeing actually how I can start thinking of technology and applying it to real world challenges. So I started Munch, as I said, to really look at how do we face common challenges around the world, whether we call it hunger, health and well-being, or gender equality or quality education. There are a whole bucket of challenges. And when I started looking at these challenges, I thought, who is addressing these challenges? And how are we investing in ensuring that these services that are essential and needed are actually being provided to people? And then I started to use that sort of this is the challenge and this is the solution we want. We want to mobilize money towards ensuring people have access to basic necessities. And how do I now start using emerging technologies to apply? So there are a couple of things when it comes to blockchain, especially, is that it's not applicable for everything. It's applicable for a certain number of situations, and there is a small checklist that we can go through. So when I was looking at Munch, obviously I was looking at philanthropy. The money that we give, everyone gives to charities everywhere around the world. In the UK, we have 168,000 registered charities that received 77 billion last year. And these amounts are huge in the US, even bigger in India. There's a whole lot of CSR that's happening, but all of this giving that's happening, it's not clear and it lives in a fuzzy box. So let me share with you very quickly 6 questions that I always tend to check whether blockchain is applicable for a particular situation or not. So the first is there a predictable or repeat process that can be automated? In philanthropy, it was definitely yes. Charities register, there is verification of trustees, there's constantly moving of money, there is audits, there is reporting on impact. So all of these like are common processes, they are repeated. Second question is this an ongoing transaction or a long running transaction, or is it something that happens just one-off? If it's one-off, you don't need blockchain. But if it's ongoing, there's definitely a blockchain application. Third is, are there multiple stakeholders in the value chain? Because if I am the only one who is managing the whole process, there is no use of blockchain or there's no need for blockchain. But if there are multiple who need access to certain amounts of data, then we can use blockchain to minimize time and maximize efficiency. The fourth question is there a role of reconciling these disparate data sets? Because sometimes you send certain information and it may be valuable, but sometimes certain information is not valuable. But if they are joined up together, they become super valuable. So can these data sets be reconciled to create value? So that's the fifth one. Is there an element of value? And value is not just money. Data, as we know, also is valuable. And as we are seeing, and coming back to the point about law, we are seeing increasing regulations for companies to report back on the impact of their activities. So we know there is definite value of impact data for companies, because if they don't capture their impact, they cannot prove at law that they actually had the impact that they're claiming to have on their annual reports or sustainability reports. And finally, is there value in having an immutable record? Because if there is no value, there is no point of blockchain. So these are, like, I would say, 6 questions that you can be asking yourself when you're thinking about applying blockchain technology for any instance. And then finally, I will just take one of the questions that was asked about blockchain languages to use. I think there is almost this myth that blockchain is something different and something new. In fact, the underlying language that blockchain is written. It can be C++, it can be Java, it can be Python. If you want to write more like the smart contracts and more like be in the blockchain space, and not so much in the, maybe I need to go one step back. Let me finish this question on language, which is C++, Python, Java, but there's also Solidity and Simplicity. So these are a few language sets that you can start learning if you don't know them, that can really get you sort of into the blockchain foot. And the last one is think about where you want to place yourself in the blockchain development process, because blockchain has 3 layers. There is a protocol layer where you actually write the underlying code as to how the technology will function. There is a network layer, which is how people who are using these protocols will interact and who needs to be part of that blockchain. And also whether you need private / permissionless blockchains, all of these considerations. And finally, it's the application layer. So how does the user interact with this blockchain? Because blockchain is not like you have to go somewhere else. I can be buying something and it can be recorded on a blockchain. And the interface needs to be as simple as being able to buy something. So I will end with that. I hope that answers a whole lot of blockchain questions many of you are asking. But I'm available even after this call. If any of you have any specific questions or need support or advice, I'm around. Thank you.
We are actually coding the future by connecting it with blockchain, and that's a point where we come to the point of adoption and scaling, right? So let's move to Shalini Warrior. As a banker who's scripting the digital journey of Federal Bank, how have you kind of discovered blockchain to drive the digital innovation with that velocity and scale?
Thanks, Anina, and quite interesting to hear some of the other insights that came through the panel discussion. So, before I just get into blockchain for Federal Bank, I think I'll just spend a couple of minutes on the overall kind of digital framework, because as a banker and for a banking industry, blockchain is just one amongst various things that we do from a digital perspective. So for Federal Bank, the digital journey has been over the last few years, enabled obviously by the changes that have been happening in the demographics of India, the smartphone penetration, the availability of broadband, some of the interventions from institutions like RBI, NPCI, all of which have encouraged a lot of digitization, obviously propelled by demonetization and this ongoing pandemic. So there's been a lot of kind of enabling factors for digital. For Federal Bank, we've always remained true to our philosophy, which is digital at the fore, human at the core. So I'll just repeat that because sometimes it can become a mouthful. Digital at the fore, human at the core. What we really mean by that is that we will ensure we have all the digital technologies available for our customers, whether it's mobile banking, internet banking, UPI, NEFT 24/7, you name it. We have it all in various forms and fashions to cater for our customers. However, we pride ourselves on the fact that, from a relationship standpoint, we're very, very strong on relationship management. We pride ourselves on the fact that our branches are available for people to come and discuss things, etc. So against that backdrop, about 4 years back, probably, we crafted out a separate team of people in digital, and we actually called it the Digital Center of Excellence. We made it independent of technology, independent of the product team, independent of the distribution team, and created something unique to give it the focus on digital. And part of the mandate for that team is to kind of make sure we migrate customers to digital so that the branches don't have to spend time on transactions. They can focus on more value additive activities. So they do a lot of work around migration. And during this pandemic time, nearly 85% of our transactions are actually happening digital. The customers are not coming into the branch for routine transactions. So that's one part of their agenda, but they have a very large responsibility. That team has a very large responsibility to experiment with new technologies. We literally cater for that by carving a portion of our expenditure and setting it aside to say, this is the kind of money we will do for experimentation. So they're perpetually experimenting with artificial intelligence, facial recognition, iris authentication. There's a lot of experiments going on, and one amongst them we chose was blockchain. So I think it was a couple of years back that we got together to say, okay, let's see what we can do with blockchain. We wanted to identify a use case that made relevance to a bank, because at the end of the day, it's got to be relevant to the banking industry and to banks like us. So we went into on an experiment with our remittance business. Federal Bank is very big in the cross-border remittance area. About 16% of India's remittances are actually processed by Federal Bank. So we've got tie-ups with a lot of exchange houses, with a lot of banks, etc. So we went in with that, and we found a partner in one of our exchange houses in the Middle East, who was as interested in experimentation as we were. So traditionally, the remittances were coming in through normal APIs, and that was kind of working for whatever purposes it was designed for. But we thought it was important to kind of now experiment with blockchain, and we went with Corda, and we chose a partner for that. And we actually now process quite a large number of transactions. About 70, 80 crores has been processed through blockchain in that. What it helped with is that kind of it improved the transparency. And I think I heard Darshita allude to that, to say that reconciliation, she in fact used the word reconciliation in the course of what she said. And that really helped, because one of the challenges we had in our API kind of technology was that literally there was a toing and froing to get a reconciliation between the thing. I have sent you 100 rupees. Have you received it? Have you given it to the beneficiary? Please confirm back so that I can tell the remitter it's been done. All of that became more transparent. So today we have that experiment. It has proved to be successful. We went in with baby steps. We did a proof of concept first to make sure it works, and then we scaled it up to commercial production, and now it's in commercial production. As we speak, we have 2 more likely to go live over the next couple of months. So that's one part of how we worked, and it's I must admit the jury is still out on how well this will work for scale, because we do millions of transactions, as you can imagine, but I think that will come over. The second experiment we have underway is, and this again refers back to something that Darshita said, which is the fact that blockchain works best when you have multiple players involved, because that's where the transparency comes in, that's where the single source of truth, as we bankers would call it, comes in. And that's where we have an experiment now underway with 10 other banks in India. We're part of we've created a company. Banks have come together in a collaborative fashion to create a company for blockchain. We are one of the founder members of that, and we have actually a director on the board of directors of that company. That company is now into looking at blockchain for the use of trade finance. Without going into the semantics of trade finance and how complicated it can be, imports and exports are a very complicated part of a banking industry. They're still very paper driven. You've got to send a bill of lading, you've got to get a shipping bill, you've got to do a lot of stuff which is still paper based. Converting that into blockchain is the thing, and that can only happen if banks come together, because it's all about trust. Today, the reason we do exchange papers is because there's a signature there. I can authenticate a Swift message. I can make sure it's coming through an accredited channel, etc. But with this company coming into existence, and with these banks, and these are leading banks, combination of private sector, public sector, foreign banks, all coming together and duly blessed by the Reserve Bank of India, we're beginning this experiment. So to summarize, really, for us, blockchain is one amongst the various technologies we are endeavoring to implement. We've had commercial success with remittances. We do believe we will see success with trade finance in a more consortium-oriented arrangement. The jury is still out. It will take time. There are, to Napinai's point, there are still some laws and regulations more than anything else that Reserve Bank needs to think through, which we're working with them on, but it will clearly be successful.
Thank you so much. I think this will be applied almost everywhere because the need is really the greatest. So coming to Sosu Alex, who is a techie from an electrical engineering background and a person who's evangelizing blockchain, how you kind of discovered blockchain and how you started working on it?
So thank you, Anina. Like I said, I had been reading about blockchain in many places. So this was a technology that was being mentioned as being mentioned as the internet of money or internet of value. So that got me hooked. And then being a techie, naturally I started digging into how this works, not actually what it means, but rather how it works. And the thing that I was fascinated about was the immutability aspect of blockchain. Once you put something there, it cannot be changed. And then I dug up a little bit into the history. It's not something new. Actually, whatever blockchain is bringing to the table, it's not something new. It has been there in different forms, but it was there as eCash, it was there as hash cash, it was there as rice stones somewhere off the coast of Japan in an island. So rice stones is nothing but something that will be established at the center of a town, and it will have inscriptions on about who owns what. So that's basically what value that blockchain brings. It's like Shalini ma'am said, it acts as a shared source of truth. For me, it was like the more I read about this technology and how everything works together. So as I said, like all the elements of the technology was already there. The hash function was there, the encryption part, the crypto part, everything was there. But what Bitcoin added into the mix is that incentive mechanism. Like, what will I get as a person who's participating in this network? What will I get? So for Bitcoin, definitely it was the mining reward and things like that. So when all these aspects, the economics, the data storage and, the game theory part of it, when it all came together, that is when the real value of blockchain was coming out. So that was something very fascinating for me. And it was such a, I really don't know how to explain it. It was kind of a undeniable pull that I just had to keep reading and keep myself updated on this. Now, when I came into the blockchain, there were a lot of use cases that were running, and what I am focused on right now is about the self-sovereign identity. So identity is a basic aspect of the human nature. So we have identity right now. Identities are being issued by some governments or some organizations. Self-sovereign identity is giving us a chance to own our own identity and create our own identity without depending on any of these external parties. So, and that I believe will go a long way into many of the social problems like gender equality or banking the unbanked, and even providing reliable ID for even refugees and people without any proof as such. So that is the area that I am focusing on, and how I came to it is basically just by reading about it and just doggedly following up and finding out more resources on how to work on this.
Thank you so much. We are really running out of time, so quickly we can take some questions, say one or two or three, and after that we can wind up the session because we are running out of time. So we'll take the questions now.
Okay, so I think the first question is specifically for Sosu Alex. It says, you're working on Ethereum certified on R3, and I presume you might have worked on Hyperledger Fabric. If you could elaborate your experience working on each of these blockchain flavors and your take on each of them and other flavors as an architect, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. So Ethereum is my definite favorite because I've worked most on it. It was one of the first platforms to come out right after Bitcoin. It is permissionless, and I think, if in my personal opinion, it sticks more towards the philosophy of what blockchain is and the whole thing about decentralization. But decentralization alone will not get things running. We definitely need that support of enterprises. It's not just about individuals who are participating in the network. Definitely there will be organizations. In that perspective, definitely R3 Corda and Hyperledger Fabric are much more suited for an enterprise scenario in the current context. Definitely enterprise Ethereum Alliance is making so many improvements to the protocol and trying to bring in new things. So the blockchain is kind of like a teenager now. So there are still more developments to come, and still more stability to come. And the future that I see, it wouldn't matter which kind of blockchain you're using. There is definitely going to be some kind of interoperability that is going to emerge out. And at that point, it wouldn't matter which blockchain you're using. It would be like, you use LinkedIn for your professional network, and you use WhatsApp or Facebook for your personal network. So it's some kind of specialization will emerge out. And it will come to a point where you won't really bother about what kind of blockchain you are using. So that's my experience working on all three.
Thank you, ma'am. I think Dr. Jane would like to answer some questions. How blockchain can be used in food industry to ensure the purity of food products?
Look, I was browsing the questions as the panel was going on, and maybe my suggestion is, Anina, is if you could share the questions with us. I'm happy to email because we're running out of time, just email the people, because there were so many questions about provenance, about gender equality, and so many different things. Maybe if you could share them with us, we could offer to come back to the participants outside of the seminar and give them that information, because I think I can answer at least 6 of the questions, but not in the time frame. And it's been such a pleasure being with this panel and hearing everyone's experiences. And clearly there's a very engaged audience, but I'd be super happy to just share answers with people after the session.
So sure, we can then we can take the questions offline. So we'll take the questions and we'll email the panelists and we'll let you know the answers. That's the best thing to be in time. So we are really running out of time, and we'll wind up this session. So what I understood from this session is technology is actually a tool that depends upon how we steward it. And what we need is a passion, a motivation, and self-confidence, and we can definitely thrive tomorrow. And that's what I came to know about from this session. So thank you so much, panelists. Thank you so much joining with us today, and thank you so much for sparing your time with us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very sorry we ran short of time, but thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.